I think it's been enough time to get a chance for people to calm down so I can, you know, talk about this movie.
Rising with each beat that the music is bringing, new flames in the fire that keeps burning. We're inviting the night in.
So, Ghostbusters, released in 2016, directed by Paul Feig, written by Katie Dippold, Paul Feig, and Ivan Reitman, and as it says in IMDb, based on the 1984 film Ghostbusters. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Christian Wiig, Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Jones, and a variety of other people that I kind of put on the back burner when it comes to it. Now, with this film, I did a rant in my previous channel before it was, somehow mysteriously removed. And I had some critical thoughts about this particular movie. And I'm not saying that because I know some people will just think, oh, you're a fanboy of Ghostbusters. No. I had some concerns because of, I like movies, and especially when it comes to now where I periodically review media, I try to be critical and I try to be fair to a certain degree. But there's a lot of issues, not just with the movie, but sources or parties involved, and it got out of control, especially after the film was released, and a lot of people were not happy with this movie. And I think at this point, it's been almost 5 years since this movie was released. I think there's been plenty enough time for people to kind of calm down, especially with how they feel about the film and the quote-unquote situations involved. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and do a review as well as do a new segment when it comes down to stuff involved, and talk about the biggest thing that happened with this film, and that being the controversies. Because honestly, I want to get that out of the way so we can talk about the film. I guess, if anything, when it comes down to the controversies, everything kind of started with the trailer. Now, honestly, when it was announced that there was going to be a new Ghostbusters movie, a lot of people were really floored with the idea of a new Ghostbusters, especially for 2016. And the fact that it was, again, a full female cast, although there were those conspiracy theorists that were kind of, to an extent, kind of going overboard with that whole thing. I myself, and I have to say this just so you guys know, I myself did not care that it was an all-female cast. My only concern was the fact that, especially when we first saw the movie, or at least got the movie, my biggest concern was, would they be entertaining? To our surprise, when we see the trailer, there were some issues. For instance, a lot of people were not happy with the fact that, I guess when it comes down to the color schemes of the ghosts, it was a mix between neon greens and blues, which was really odd, considering that with the original Ghostbusters film, they used a variety of different colors for the ghosts, and in fact there were a variety of different things that became ghosts, or at least possessed by ghosts, which was entertaining to see. And as for the female cast, they weren't entertaining. In fact, if anything, any jokes that they made were stale. A lot of the things they did were obnoxious, at least for a lot of people. And above all, it just didn't seem entertaining. To make matters worse, once a huge variety of different people were, again, not happy with the trailer that was released, Sony decided to push it as if it was, a against women thing. Try to make it, or at least bring in the whole notion of, sexism into this whole situation, when in reality it wasn't. And again, especially with the trailer, it wasn't about sexism. It wasn't. Just people that, at this point, didn't care for the characters. Didn't care for, the look of it, for that matter. Which, I'm going to be honest, I could care less about the look. It looked fine, for the most part. But the characters were the biggest point. And it wasn't because they were women. It's just that they were boring. And I'll go further than that in my character section of my review. But when it comes down to other things that were going on, a lot of commentary creators, as well as, critics, reviewers, a lot of them were reacting to the trailer as well, and a lot of them were not happy. In fact, the creator of Cinemassacre, James Rolfe, who is also not just the creator of Cinemassacre, but is the individual who acts and plays as the variety of different characters for a show, more popular being the Angry Video Game Nerd, did a review or video discussing his thoughts on the trailer, as well as making a video saying that, doing a quick review of, or at least non-review, as he put it, of the movie from what he saw from the trailer. And this, I guess, made a variety of different people heated, and tried to paint James Rolfe as some sort of villain. In reality, he was only giving his opinion on what he saw, and at that point, not going to give in to peer pressure, as he put it, with a lot of other people who are more likely going to watch the film and waste money, or at least how they feel would be wasting money on a film that they didn't like. And a lot of people ate that up, unfortunately. A lot of people who saw hate towards James Rolfe decided to feed into that. And it didn't help, too, that one of the actresses, I will not name names, decided to feed into this, too, also trying to pull the race card. And I think at that point, you guys know who I'm talking about. But it's, at this point, again, this all developed because of one trailer. And unfortunately, it went way overboard. Especially with the fact that, again, it wasn't the fact that it was an all-female cast. But as they were portrayed in the trailer, they just were boring. They weren't entertaining. And above all, honestly, it was something that shouldn't have happened. Especially when, unfortunately, with how characters are portrayed, they do some really, I think, despicable things, especially to certain other characters, at least characters from the opposite sex. Which, again, I'll go into that with the characters section. But when it comes down to that, at least when it comes to the controversy that I remember that happened, again, it was just blown way out of proportion because of one trailer. And again, because I keep repeating myself, it wasn't because of the fact that the female cast was all female. It was the fact that the characters were boring. But we'll talk more about that in the character section. With that, why don't we go ahead and move on to the story section of this review. Alright, so story. It's I wanted to say something positive, but because I unfortunately had to rewatch the movie to do this review. It's a retread of the first film, for the most part. I guess to talk about it, it starts off with a woman who is trying to get tenure at a college that she is working at, and I believe that was Christian Wig, or Aaron Gilbert, or as the character she's playing. And unfortunately, a book of hers keeps popping up that apparently she wrote with Abby Waits, who's played by Melissa McCarthy. And she goes to confront Abby about this whole situation. Although this whole starts off with apparently a man coming by to see Aaron about a potential ghost. Which, by the way, it kind of like, as the movies start for Ghostbusters, there's a segment where a ghost shows up and we then see the characters. But she goes to confront Abby, tells her about the ghost, and then they go see the ghost, and kind of like the first movie, proceed to, go into the haunted area, see the ghost, somebody gets slimed, and then go from there. Aaron, who apparently the video that they used to, record the event, ends up getting late. She loses her job, loses her tenure, or a chance for tenure, goes to Abby, where they start considering, trying to find a setup for ghost hunting, or at least, archiving ghosts. Also gets fired, which I think was the same guy that played, or at least one of the guys that played in The Big Bang Theory. Also, fun fact, and I kind of felt like this was a waste of his talent to an extent, or at least, screen time. The headmaster that was Aaron's boss was played by Charles Dance, who was one of the father, the main Lannister from Game of Thrones. Also playing the Emperor from Witcher. So, yeah, a lot of fun. Also played the terrorist from Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Did a lot of stuff, but those are some of the things that I remember him from. But he's a good actor, and I kind of felt like this was a waste of his talent. Anyway, so they start trying to get set up to, ghost hunt. They meet up with, I guess, to get a receptionist, they get a receptionist who is Chris Hemsworth, or Chris Hemsworth is playing the actor, or this whole receptionist. And I don't want to talk much about his character right now, because again, it's not that section. But going further than that, they end up coming across another situation with a ghost, where we meet our other character, Leslie Jones. And by the way, for the first section, we also met Kate McKinnon's character, Jillian Holtzman, who is, again, the tech person. We have, so basically we have, just talking about our four characters this second, or at least, no, not this second, but anyways, we got 3 of our characters for the cast. Then going into the subway section, where our character, Patty Tolan, comes across the ghost. And at that point, they go there, try to test out, I guess, unexperimented equipment, and doesn't work, for the most part. They then, try again at another location. And as they're going to these different locations, they come across these devices that are being used for, I guess, summoning the ghosts. And to an extent, I guess, on and off, they've been coming across this one weird guy, which is named Rowan, played by Neil Cassie. And I really dislike this, but I really dislike this character, and I'll explain more in the character section. But the third trial, or I guess third time around, they got all their gear together, and they proceed to go to this auditorium or large area where they, or theater section, where they proceed to hunt down a new ghost. And the third time around, they're actually successful. They're able to capture the ghost and, take it with them. Unfortunately, that's short-lived, considering we get a cameo from Bill Murray, who kind of goats them into, which honestly I think this was kind of stupid. I mean, it's understandable to an extent, but I thought it was kind of stupid, considering they want to keep it contained and want to find a place to store it. So they're easily goaded into opening the canister, or at least the character Aaron is goaded to opening the canister, and the ghost flies out and basically throws Bill Murray out of the window, which, I'm not gonna lie, his cameo is, honestly, he's just playing the same character to an extent as he was in the Ghostbusters, playing when he played Venkman. The guy who, unfortunately, even though he sees ghosts, is kind of like, meh, it's nothing. It's just a hoax to an extent. And yeah, his character's killed, which I'm sure he probably, if I remember correctly, he wanted to die in that. If I remember correctly, I think he wanted his character to die. But anyway, going further, they basically try to figure out what's going on. They find another location after, I guess, uncovering a certain scenario, or at least clues that the points where ghosts have been found have been under sections of ley lines, or intersecting ley lines. And basically, they find out where the center of this whole thing is. That being this massive hotel where Rowan apparently works. They go to confront him, where he has built this machine designed to basically break the barrier between our world and the ghost world. And before they can take him in, or at least have the police take him in, he kills himself. Which, I will say, I'm not gonna lie, like, watching where he dies, he'd be a little bit more crispier. Like, it looked like nothing happened to him besides the whole getting electrocuted thing. I kind of figured with more likely how much power would probably be in that machine. I want to say close to like maybe tens of thousands of volts. I'm pretty sure he'd be a fried piece of human meat after the whole thing. And more likely, if it's electricity, probably still be clinging onto that after he died, not just a let go and flail to the ground. But anyways, that's just me. So after that, the Ghostbusters end up, which earlier they had a meeting with the mayor, who basically told them to fuck off, don't continue doing what you're doing. They are carted away by the police, who at that point, 3 of the characters are separated. Abby, Jillian and Patty are in their own direction, where they're going back to their location, or their base of operations. And Aaron, who is kind of still at the hotel, or at least somewhere else, proceeds to look at a book or at least a copy of the Abby and Aaron's book, and realizes that something's not right, where she sees scribblings from Rowan about using their technology, or at least ideas for their technology, to punch a hole, and kind of sees how kind of fucked up in the head he is, and proceeds to try to warn the mayor and his secretary, which the secretary kind of reminds me of, to an extent, of the secretary from the second movie. Either that or the of Dickless from the first movie. And inevitably, we have a moment where there's a fight between Abby, Jillian, and Patty, because Abby ends up getting possessed by Rowan. And then after the whole fight, Chris Hemsworth character, Kevin, gets possessed, goes back to the hotel and turns the machine back on, and things start going to hell. And and basically after this, we have the moment where, all the Ghostbusters come back together. They, try to fight off Kevin after he, unpossesses, or at least Rowan after he unpossesses Kevin. And no joke, this what happens next is a complete ripoff of the first movie, where the individual, or Rowan, asks, "Oh, choose the form." And he basically is like, "Gozer, choose the form that you want me to take as the Destroyer." Like, that's not what he said, but if anything, it is so much similar. And they're all picking. I will say there is a funny line where there is like, okay, Jillian Holtzman is like, "Well, can you pick a stationary target, like a bullseye?" I'm like, okay, that was funny. Honestly, I thought that was kind of funny. And Patty is, "Why don't you pick something cute and cuddly?" So Rowan decides to take on the form of their logo, only kind of briefly, as he is still the logo, but turns into more of a demonic version of the logo. So, yeah. He grows to the size, like maybe several stories tall, and proceeds to start destroying the city. So not only do they have to figure out a way to stop Rowan, but they also have to, figure out a way to, stop all the ghosts. So they do. And after the machine was basically turned back on, a doorway or a portal was opened up, and they figured that in order to basically close the portal and quite possibly entrap the ghosts, they have to push, or at least kind of get the Echo 1 into the portal and basically set it off like a nuke, which will then trigger a quantum reversal and basically suck in all of the ghosts or nearby ghosts back into the portal. And yeah, by the way, I skipped a bit that happened, because they come across a version of Slimer, which honestly I like the updated version of Slimer. I will give it that. I like the updated version of Slimer. But stupidly, there's a point where when it's just Abby, Jillian, and Patty, I guess somebody forgot to take the keys out of Echo 1, and they have to watch Slimer basically run into Echo 1, start the car, and drive off. And unfortunately, they can't do any damage to the car, because Holtzman, or Jillian, mentions the fact that on top, basically, Echo 1 was turned into a nuclear bomb due to the reactors. So, yeah. But anyways, in order for them to get Echo 1 into the portal, which was still being driven by Slimer, and apparently a female version of Slimer, and a bunch of ghosts, they proceed to guide it into the portal, and before it goes into the portal, shoot the canisters. Which, once it gets inside, it blows up, and all the ghosts are immediately, being sucked into the portal. After that, we see Rowan also getting sucked into the portal, because at this point, he's a dead man, so that means he's a ghost, which means he goes into the portal. At one point, he's holding on to, his undead life. And in order for them to get him into the portal, because he's holding on, again, really tightly to a bunch of buildings, I'm not fucking kidding. And it's like the cheapest joke that you could do. They proceed to shoot him in the balls for him to let go and get sucked into the portal. Yeah. I'm not kidding. I kind of face-palmed at that, because I felt like that was a cheap shot. No pun intended. But, yeah. He gets sucked into the portal, not without grabbing Abby, because, you know, you have to have this whole, you know, if I go down, I'm taking you with me bit, where we have Aaron then proceed to kind of attach a grappling hook or a tow rig onto herself, jump into the portal to grab Abby and save her. And they did this bit where apparently her hair starts to gray, or their hair turns white, and I kind of feel like they stole that from Poltergeist, where the mom ends up going into the portal, and when she comes out, all of her hair is completely white. So yeah, I kind of feel like they stole that from that. But anyways, after everything, the day saved, the Ghostbusters, you know, saved the day. Kevin apparently comes to with a sandwich, which they're confused about. And that's about it. Well, at least by the end of it, they're praised, and they end up getting the firehouse, which is another bit I forgot to mention, because at some point while they're looking for offices, they come across the firehouse, which I think is the same firehouse from the original films. But unfortunately, they couldn't afford it. So at that point, I guess they now have the mayor's backing to do what they need to do. And when the secretary is like, whatever you need, we'll give it to you, they basically were like, okay, yeah, we want the firehouse. So they got the firehouse. And we get quick cameo from another one of the original cast from Ghostbusters, and basically a few other cameos near the end. Actually, I take that back. There was a quick cameo from the actress who played Janine from the original Ghostbusters, and she played as a receptionist for the hotel, which I thought was interesting. But anyway, to an extent, again, I just wanted to kind of give a quick synopsis in case for those who have not seen this film, you guys can have a quick idea of what the film is about, or at least the story. But yeah, the film itself, there's a lot of things that it rips off, and honestly, it is just dumb. Especially since, you know, this all starts because you have a guy that more than likely was dealing with a lot of shit mentally, that he got into his head that he should just, you know, destroy the world using ghosts. Which kind of makes me think about the whole, you know, mental health thing, especially when it comes down to current situations involving mental health and shootings. But, you know, nobody talks about, you know, mental health. If anything, they only talk about fucking video games. I'm sorry, that's a rant for another day. Let's move on to the next section. So, we're going to talk about characters. Now, I think, once again, I should make this disclaimer that anything I say when it comes to being negative involving the main leads, anything negative, it's not because I'm sexist, because I'm sure a lot of people would probably coin that as such. I'm saying it because I'm looking at this as a movie critic point of view. And even though I don't do this, you know, as a primary thing, I'm trying to look at this film critically. And, by the way, in case people don't think that, you know, this is a real thing, because I know a lot of people think that, you know, opinions don't matter when they do. This is all opinion based. So, your opinions may differ from mine, but in reality, it's my opinions, and I can say what I want to say, especially when it comes down to, you know, that little thing of freedom of speech. So, anyways, let's talk about the characters, who are more so knockoffs of the original characters, though with twists. And I will say, to give them credit, there's one difference between the four characters, and that being with Aaron Gilbert, or the actress Kristen Wiig playing as Aaron Gilbert, which I'll start with her. So, to an extent, I want to classify her as the Vegman, or, you know, the opposite of Bill Murray's character. Now, with Bill Murray playing as Peter Venkman was a scoundrel. He was a con artist in the original films, as well as somebody who would really fuck with people when he was, in the college field. Erin, however, apparently, who, again, was motivated by ghosts, wanted to move away from that. She wanted to have a professional career. When we first see this character, she is literally trying to get her tenure to become a professor. But unfortunately, that ends up becoming, it threatened due to a book that her and Abby make. Now, going on to Abby. Abby is basically a blatant ripoff of Raymond. Unfortunately. It is pretty much the same character. Although, to an extent, I'm not a particular fan of this character, more so because of certain situations involving, honestly, when it comes down to treatment of other characters. And to an extent, kind of yelling at people that aren't, associated with, things that go wrong. Now going on to the next character, Jillian Holtzman, basically the ripoff of Egon, though to an extent, whereas, Egon, again, he's the scientist, he's the socially awkward one. Holtzman, the character Holtzman, is obnoxious, and I hated this character when they were on screen. I really did. Again, not because they were a woman, but because they were obnoxious. They were annoying. I will say that they made cool gadgets, but at the same time, it's just their character was just unbearable to watch. Now, going on to the next character, Patty Tolan, played by Leslie Jones. Unfortunately, I have to say the same thing with this character, is a knockoff of Winston. Though to an extent, they do something interesting with her, where apparently she, the way they set her up is she knows or has knowledge of anything involving New York. Which honestly is a cool idea. I like that they did that. I really like that they did that with her. As well as, kind of giving history of, back and forth giving history of, certain areas of certain locations. Which was good. I like that. I like that about the character. Now, by the way, since we were talking about, the characters that they are loosely based on, or most so kind of based on, or ripping off, let's talk about the cameos. Which, oh my gosh. They're brief. They are so brief. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of felt they were wasted on this. I really did. Bill Murray playing the skeptic. Basically, him playing in this whole skeptic thing where he debunks people who hunt down ghosts. In fact, the first scene we see of him is literally him debunking the Ghostbusters catching a ghost or seeing a ghost. It was just stupid. And then him getting killed off. Again, I have this theory that he basically told the director to kill him in the movie. I honestly, I have this thing that I just have this theory that he told them to do that. Ray kind of playing a quick cab driver and saying the traditional line, "Ain't afraid of no ghosts," I kind of felt was like too quick. Ernie Hudson, making a quick cameo near the very end where he's the uncle of Patty, who basically borrowed one of his hearse because he works at a funeral home, was to an extent interesting. Unfortunately, we didn't have Harold Ramis because he passed away. Sigourney Weaver during the credits, which how angry would I, like, if I was Sigourney Weaver, how angry would I be to be, like, out of all of the other characters, I was pushed only for the credits, like, or in between the credits. That's sad. That's sad. That is just so disrespectful to Sigourney Weaver. We also had Annie Potts, who, again, like, played as a hotel receptionist. By the way, Amy Potts is the person who plays Janine in the original film. And although, all these actors, again, when it comes down to, the original cast, came by to do a quick cameo, again, opinions, I kind of felt like their talents were wasted, especially with, like, only a few seconds or maybe a minute of screen time. Which I'm sure that would probably piss them off a little bit, but again, I guess if anything, it is a quick cameo, but it was just wasted here. Now, I want to talk about the controversial ones, especially when it comes down to characters, because especially with the controversies, a variety of groups tried to claim that people were being sexist because the women were women in the Ghostbusters movie, and assuming that they were trying to set up this whole thing where this movie empowers women, it really dumbs down or makes any of the other male characters seem incompetent. Two examples I have, especially when it comes to this film, are Benny and Kevin. Benny, played by Corin Sony, is a delivery boy or delivery driver or just, somebody who does deliveries for a restaurant that Abby frequents. Abby treats this character like shit. And unfortunately, and kind of treats him as if he's incompetent because, oh my gosh, there's one wonton in her fucking... Which I will admit, that would make me mad. But at the same time, it's not the delivery boy's fault that there's only one wonton in your fucking soup. It really isn't. Like, whenever I saw those scenes, especially... And it happens twice. Three fucking times. Where she treats this poor guy like shit. It's like, dude, it's not his fault. Blame the people that made the fucking food or put the food in the fucking containers. It's not his fault. And then there's Kevin, played by Chris Hemsworth, which I also think is another situation where his talents were just wasted here. Chris Hemsworth is a beefcake, but also a fucking dumbass, and is supposed to be the receptionist. And I'm gonna be honest. His bit of playing the dumb guy got old really fucking quick. Like, really fucking quick. I hated him in this movie. I really, really fucking did. But unfortunately, again, not trying to sound sexist, because that's not the point I'm trying to make across. It doesn't help your film or trying to set up your whole narrative of empowering women when you make I think it goes to show with, certain groups where you basically overpower or make the women powerful, but make all the men stupid and incompetent. It really doesn't help your narrative. Now, with that being said, I want to talk about Rowan, who is an interesting character. More so to the fact that I have a lot to say about him, especially rewatching the film and really thinking about it. And this is another case where, to an extent, especially somebody who is, awkward and outcast, this guy is treated like shit. Like, non-stop in the film. It is an ongoing thing. And unfortunately, I have a feeling that, again, opinions, if he didn't get into the ghost thing, this is a guy that more than likely would have just, purchased a gun at the nearest shop or gun shop or whatever, and would probably go to the nearest school and shoot up the school. I think, if anything, Rowan is one of those cases where I would probably assume it deals with mental health. And again, if he didn't go for the ultimate extreme, which was, kill himself, become a powerful ghost to basically try to take over the world, he more likely would have shot up a school. Just saying. Rowan is a knockoff, and it doesn't help too that Rowan, like, by the end of it, becomes a knockoff of fucking Gozer. Where, by the end of it, again, he tells the main cast to pick a form, or his final form. He takes on that form, and proceeds to try to destroy the city. This guy, I to an extent, I kind of feel sympathy for him. Because, again, this is more likely, this guy is an outcast compared to a lot of the other people in the city, and is treated like shit every fucking time he's on the screen. So, to an extent, I can understand why he did the things he did. I don't approve of it, but at the same time, I kind of feel bad for him. But anyway, yeah, Rowan, again, is a knockoff of Gozer. And I kind of feel that... I keep making this point, but yeah, if he wasn't into ghosts, he would have just shot up a school. Or done something even as drastic. But anyway, that's just my thoughts of the characters. Let's move on to the next segment. Oh boy. Alright, so let's talk about effects. And honestly, there's not much to talk about. And I'm going to be quick with this one because, there's not much to talk about. So, first, let's talk about the ghosts. So a lot of people in the or at least when they looked at the trailers, had a lot of issue with the color scheme. Or at least the fact that, and especially for the movie, when people finally watched it, a lot of people had issue with the fact that with the ghosts, they were mostly, like neon blue or neon green. Which honestly, I kind of saw this as Sony or the directors kind of doing this as their own design, which I was cool with. I didn't care. I did like the designs for a few of the ghosts, particularly the updated version of Slimer. I thought that was pretty cool, and apparently, which to an extent I thought was hilarious, them creating a female Slimer. I liked the design for the demon ghost, or the winged demon, that popped up, as well as the tall man ghost that pretty much partakes in the final fight, or one of the final fights of the film. The new getup that the female leads have is really cool. The jumpsuit design looks really cool. The equipment is interesting, or at least the redesign for the equipment looks really cool. At least for the initial proton packs, as well as the trap. It looked really awesome. The other stuff that apparently popped up, when it comes to their new weapons, apparently, it was an odd choice, but at the same time, I kind of accepted it for the final fight, because it was something that was stupid, and I just rolled with it for that moment in time, because it only shows up twice in the film. Now, with that, again, there's not much to talk about. There really isn't. I did like the effects, and I will say that out of anything in the film, it's probably my biggest highlight or at least positive, for this movie. Not much though, because again, there's not much to talk about when it comes down to the effects and everything that goes on to the effects. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and move on to the next segment, which is music. So when it comes down to music, I think it's made clear that when it comes down to, what we hear, at least for the background, which to an extent you're mostly, focused on the other stuff, not focused on the music. It seems like it's updated renditions of older tracks or scores from the original films, which honestly I'm not going to gripe about it too much, or at all, because honestly it's cool. Usually, music, although I enjoy it being added, is not one of the biggest things to even worry about, especially when it comes to the film. All in all, it's, what's going on in the movie that matters. But all in all, with it being updated, like, it seems like it being updated versions of old tracks it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. I enjoy listening to some of that music, like, in between, commutes and stuff. So, all in all, I approve it. It was good. I liked it. Alright, guys, we're at the end game of this review. The final thoughts. And then we go on to the rating. But anyways, final thoughts. I kind of feel like if they did some changes, they would have had a better film. And before you guys, I know some people will probably will look at this review and comment, "Oh, you mean like change the gender?" No. And if you're going to say that, just click off the video. Just fucking leave. I'm sorry for sounding mean, but here's the thing. And I've said this time and time again in my video. I don't care that the gender of the main cast is female. What matters to me is if they're entertaining and how they influence the story. That's all that fucking matters. It's not about your race. It's not about your sex or gender. It's what you do in the story that matters. I know a lot of people, especially people who are very sensitive and want to push their own logic onto other people, think that that's the ultimate notion, is to only worry about the race and gender or sex of the character and make that as the talking point, but in reality, that's not. And there's been a lot of issues with other media that only focus on their race, their sex, and their gender. And unfortunately, a lot of those end up just flopping critically, unfortunately. There are some good ones, but at the same time, those ones that had that sort of, I guess, talked about that sort of stuff kind of did it in a very subtle way and not kind of pushing it in your face. But all in all, again, the fact that it's an all-female cast doesn't matter to me. Now, going further than that, I kind of feel like they could have done something different with the characters. And I guess if anything, first, let's start off. For the story, don't make it a knockoff of Gozer. Do something different. Do something that, honestly, they haven't done before with Ghostbusters. Because, again, the story itself is just a knockoff of Gozer. As for the four characters, let's talk about the characters for a second. I feel like, if anything, don't make Abby a blatant ripoff of Ray. Aaron Gilbert, honestly, I didn't have any problems with. In fact, anything, she's like the one difference of all the characters. Jillian Holtzman, instead of being obnoxious, and again, if you want to have the socially awkward character that is good with science, good for you, but I would have toned down how obnoxious she was. I really would have. As for Patty Tolman, how do I begin with this character? Honestly, to an extent, I like the fact that this was the person who, at this point, it was an individual who was very knowledgeable about the city. I like that. So, I guess if anything, I don't really much have gripes about this character. But at the same time, I know some people will probably, kind of hate me for this, but I kind of felt like, to a certain degree, that she was kind of like a Winston. And how they treated him in that movie. Especially with, the fact that that character was not a scientist to a certain degree. That he was just there. That's what it felt like for the Patty character, unfortunately. And I kind of wish they would have done more with her. Though, she does have her moment near the very end, but at the same time, it's just I just feel like that character was there to be there. And that was it. For Rowan, I guess if anything, talking about Rowan, the character, again, is a knockoff of Gozer, unfortunately. I think, again, pick somebody else that's honestly a different villain. Yeah, hell, if anything, create your own ghost. That would have been better. Create your own ghost villain that you could have used. But you guys didn't. Hell, if anything, somehow bring in Cthulhu. The freaking animated series did shit like that. Why don't you bring in Cthulhu? I don't know. It sounds something like that sounds way better than, a guy who more likely may be suffering from, some form of mental instability, basically turning himself into a ghost to destroy a fucking city. That sounds way better than what you guys have in this film. Effects, I have no problems with. Music, I have no problems with. And to top it off, here's another thing that probably wouldn't have pissed people off already, especially for your movie. They shouldn't, and I'm talking about the controversy, they shouldn't have tried to push this whole sexism narrative. If you wanted to promote your movie in a good way, that wasn't a way to do it. Especially when, again, people criticizing you and giving their opinions, and your thought process was to try to shun them and treat them like garbage. That was not okay. So, with that, I know I've probably, for those end up watching this, I know there might be a few people that aren't going to like my review. But at the same time, again, it's all an opinion. If you have any thoughts, leave in the comments down below. But all in all, final verdict. Unfortunately, again, when it comes down to it, Aaron is different. Which, out of all the characters, Aaron isn't a knockoff of previous characters. The villain sucks. The story is just a knockoff of Ghostbusters 1. It sets up this whole narrative that women in this film are smart while men are incompetent and fucking stupid or impotent. And when it comes down to effects, the effects were great. Music was okay. And above all, it's a mixed bag. But mostly, it's just a bag that more likely was filled with shit previously. So, with that, final verdict. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 10. It's... Honestly, there's some things that could have been done better. And if it wasn't for the whole sexism thing that they tried to pull, honestly, I'm sure a lot of people would have given their opinions. And heck, here's something else. Here's something else. And it's sad because honestly, when it comes down to it, I know movie studios think that we shouldn't listen to critics or listen to the public when it comes down to their thoughts about films. But take a look at a movie like Sonic the Hedgehog. When the first trailers came out, people were appalled of the movie, or at least the concept for Sonic. And what did they do? They ended up deciding to change the design for Sonic. Now, granted, if you guys were to listen, more likely it would have been, oh wait, no, we got to reshoot everything, and more likely the movie would be delayed another 1 to 2 years. But at the same time, it's like there's a lot of issues with your movie, and it's not because of sexism. It's because there's some poor choices and a lot of stuff that will piss people off. So again, final verdict, 3 out of 10. My final verdict of this movie for Ghostbusters 2016. Alright, so that was my review of Ghostbusters. And for a lot of people, understand, I doubt a lot of people would be, getting this far into the video, but understand that this review comes at a good place. Or at least, when it comes down to, trying to give a good review of this movie. And I don't want to sound like I completely shitted on it, because there were a few things that I actually approved of. It was nice. And I only say the things I say because at this point, I'm one of those people that, as one of my hobbies, I watch films. I enjoy breaking down each film and talking about certain aspects of it. Either the characters, the story, the music, heck, the minor things like music or effects. All in all, it is something that I enjoy doing. And to be perfectly honest, again, as I mentioned in the previous segment, there's a few things that they could have done differently, and it would have been good. But unfortunately, due to, I guess if anything, closed-mindedness from the creators as well as the groups that were trying to defend or falsely defend this whole situation that was created by, again, one trailer and people giving their opinions, it just got out of hand. So with that, I'm going to end the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Truly appreciate it. Again, if you guys have anything you want to say or at least add to my review, leave it in the comments down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. If you want to call me a shitbag, go ahead and call me a shitbag. I don't care. If you guys can, also like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, our links are down below. As well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. And our community streams. With that being said, this is Rob Novakast signing off. Have a good one. Take care. And I will see you guys in the next video.